Google Plus friends.
And we're live.
And we're live, I think. I don't know. The little blue square hasn't gone off.
I still say off the air over here.
Ah, there we go. We're live. For sure we're live this time. How are you?
Woo!
This is at Fox Foreman. It is Sunday night, 9 p.m. Central, and all over the planet you've tuned in to waste another hour watching me in a pirate hat. But the good news is I brought people who are more interesting than me. We're going to continue a bookend conversation from last week talking about innovative technology virtual technology used to engage people about their mental health care, and specifically for youth and perhaps even youth in crisis. This is going to be a lot of fun. Please do, if you have any fun avatars that you make or fun memes that you make about tonight, please do tweet them out, hashtag SPSM, or with hashtag avatars so you can find them. It'll be fun. And we have a couple of guests with us tonight. You recognize one of our guests as our regular co-host, but we planned this out a little bit in advance. Everybody, welcome as our guest expert tonight, Dr. Bart Andrews!
Woo! Hey.
Only Melissa Pinto knows how to work the applause button. I haven't figured it out.
Yeah, it's almost like being at the Oscars, but without the celebrity, the applause, and the fame. So it's pretty close.
You have the pocket skirt. You're dressed up.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's a joy to be here.
Dr. Andrews, tell us where you work.
So I work at an amazing crisis agency, behavioral health agency in St. Louis, Missouri, Behavioral Health Response. We go by BHR. I've been there for 16 years, and we're actively involved in crisis intervention, suicide intervention, and basically meeting behavioral health needs in a manner that meets the needs of people everywhere, so they can get it face-to-face or electronically, whatever works. And I'm really excited to be here tonight to talk about our VOICE program, our virtual online youth center, and we have our program manager, who you guys will all meet in a little bit, DeWitt Campbell, who is also amazing.
And why don't we meet him? Because he has figured out his special effects. Everybody, there we go, DeWitt!
Hello, hi everybody.
Off?
Well, I'm kind of stuck. I'm not sure if I like this route or this route. I think it's probably a little too much to do both.
The patch. The patch. The patch
is...
Okay.
If you make it to AAS or anything, I will give you an eye patch. Playing along.
Thanks. Thank you. Hopefully I'll never need one. So.
No, I have them. I have SPSM eye patches.
Okay. All right. Good deal.
I have all the toys to it. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you got involved with Dr. Bart Andrews.
Sure. So I'm a social worker by trade and education, and I work now as a kind of a freelance social worker, and just started working on a project with BHR, working under Bart Andrews, Dr. Bart. To create the virtual world that we're bringing youth into to just kind of hang out, have fun, and at the same time have access to mental health services. So it's pretty cool.
So you're a social worker who understands technology?
I'm a social worker who loves technology and understands a lot of the stuff I can buy at Best Buy. I don't know how it got to Best Buy or what went into making it, but I understand the stuff that's there.
And you say you're sort of an early adopter, like end user, is how you refer to yourself. And so you're definitely a part of our crowd. I'm a terrible end user with anxiety and avoidance that is sort of forced into this. So I'm glad to have enthusiastic early adopters here with us.
You're overcoming your anxiety pretty well right now. Thanks.
And we want to do a couple of quick shout-outs while we're doing introductions. I want to do a shout-out to @StuckOnSocialWork, our friend Sean, who is assisting with the SPSM account tonight. If you need anything, I want you to tweet to @SPSM Chat, or tweet to @StuckOnSocialWork, or tweet to our production manager @ADWWW, Mr. Tony Wood, who is also assisting us tonight. There are many of you who are also assisting with live tweeting. Let's give a shout out. Let's wave to Tony Wood. People come on and then you go off. I can't make it work fast enough. if you are live tweeting tonight, just make sure that, and we've been following consistent standards in the SPSM community. I'm so proud of you. That if you are paraphrasing somebody, just put their Twitter handle or last name in front of it, and if you are doing direct quotes, just put it in quotations. And then you're a fancy live tweeter, and way to go. I think that we should like have downloadable badges or something. Maybe we'll put that on the list. So why don't we go ahead and get started? We're just rolling out with question 1 for Dr. Bart Andrews and for Mr. DeWitt Campbell. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about Voice and tell us how this project started?
Sure. Great question, April. This actually all started, there's a great program in St. Louis County called the St. Louis County Children's Service Fund. There is, through legislation, counties can pass a sales tax increase, a very small sales tax increase to fund youth and children's services. BHR has been really one of the founding providers of that in St. Louis County. We created actually an award-winning Youth Connection helpline and follow-up program. And so a couple years ago, they released some more funds. They wanted to look at innovation and how can we innovate? What are some new things that we can do?
Hold the phone. They gave you money for this?
They gave it, and they're an amazing partner. I know it's really cool stuff. We simply could not have done this. In fact, it was the St. Louis County Children's Service Fund that allowed BHR to create its texting and online chat access for youth in the region. In St. Louis County, we then spread out to St. Charles County through their Children's Fund, and we're hoping to move into the St. Louis City proper. And so they put out grant money and said we want to see things that are innovative. We want to see new ways to reach youth, and they really put some stipulations. We don't want to see something that's been done somewhere else. We want to see new stuff. And so there is a local substance use provider, Preferred Family Health, another amazing partner agency, and they had been doing, with the help of one of their former vice presidents, Dick Dillon, who is an amazing man, had been doing some avatar-assisted substance use therapy. And so I thought, what if we took this model, avatar-assisted treatment, and we brought it to youth in St. Louis County, but I took it one step further. I didn't just want avatar-assisted therapy. I wanted to create an avatar-assisted youth center. So this wasn't a place where youth just went and got treatment. It was a place where youth could go and hang out and connect with each other and be peer-to-peer. In St. Louis, it's a large metropolitan area, and a lot of youth, even if you put a youth center in this section or that section, you really can't get a whole lot of youth from different areas in one place, right? So I thought, what a great way to get people together, get youth together, and we to create basically a virtual youth center, so to speak. And when Dick demonstrated the software to me, I was blown away because there's just so many different opportunities that you can do in World. And so that's kind of how the idea got started, was creating this virtual youth center and having a way for youth to both access crisis intervention services, access youth support and contact each other, and also access services, substance use services, counseling services, all in World.
So you're using terms like in World, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means, because not everybody here has been like a virtual technology user. But before we do that, we're going to talk about how DeWitt Campbell enters into this. You guys now were friends, or like, how did this all really happen? DeWitt, I'm going to ask DeWitt. He's cute. So how did you two become friends? I'm terrible. How did you two become friends, and how did you guys get started working on this project together?
So I used to work for an agency, an awesome agency in the St. Louis region called Youth in Need. And Youth in Need partners with BHR to operate the Youth Connection helpline. And so if a youth calls in to the youth helpline and they have any kind of a housing issue, then BHR called my staff, and I was the head of the program that worked directly with Bart's team. And if there was a housing need, then one of the outreach staff from my organization would go out and meet with the youth and help them work through whatever their issues. And so we met through meetings and that type of thing. And then when I decided to do this freelance thing, the idea is to connect with as many people as you can. And I gave Bart a call to talk about some other things, and he said, well, hey, guess what? We've got this neat new project coming up, and I think it might be a good fit for you. And I said yes.
I have to tell you that saying yes is my favorite way to get into trouble.
Well, it's a good way to get out of trouble sometimes too.
So tell us a little bit about your experience prior to that with technology, and if you had an experience with virtual technologies.
Sure. So I do not have any prior experience with virtual worlds per se.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a video gamer, and I got into MMORPGs, which is massively multiplayer online.
You need to explain what that is, because there are a lot of folks that don't know what that is.
Yep. So it's they're role-playing games that are video games where you create a character. Yep. And they're massive multiplayer online games, and so it's very similar to a virtual world in that you have a character, you go through a story, you meet other people that are real people around the world. When people log in, you have an emotional reaction. Yay, so-and-so logged in. Oh no, so-and-so logged in, and they always bug me when they log in. So a lot of the same types of dynamics that happen in the real world happen in video games, which is also the same types of things that we are hoping to be able to recreate with this virtual world.
Now I hear, DeWitt, that they're saying that someday these RPGs and MMOs will be popular with the youth.
Maybe one day, maybe sometime in the future we'll get there. It depends on the metric that you're looking at, but one of the most successful World of Warcraft is like going on 15 years or something like that, and has millions and millions of daily users. So I think they're doing okay.
Old.
Yeah, it may be closer to 10. It may be closer to 10, but it's been going for quite a while now.
So, Bart, did you have any prior experience? Oh, his feed keeps coming in and out. Bart, did you have any prior experience with virtual reality technologies?
A little bit. And so the exposure that I had was there was a Second Life project. I don't know if you guys remember, but a few years back, I don't know if it was AS, but one of the organizations was looking at using Second Life as kind of a virtual training ground, as a way So that project, and I was affiliated with that, very loosely, and got exposed to it then. I think the first real exposure I had was when I found out about Preferred Family. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna have to turn. My notifications are. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So the Preferred Family was the first organization I saw really using it, and they were local. And so I got to see some of their data and their outcomes. And what they were showing is that particularly in rural populations with substance use treatment, particularly mandatory substance use treatment, it's so hard to get back and forth when you're going multiple times a week to treatment. That was their attrition rate was really high.
Yes.
And so they started using this avatar-assisted therapy. And when they were using it, their outcomes were amazing. They were showing just as good a results as face-to-face, but their attrition was much lower. So they were getting more folks. The folks were enjoying it. It was really successful.
Can you get some numbers on attrition? Because that's really important.
So, I don't want to misstate, but I believe that their attrition rate was half of what it was when they were doing face-to-face services.
Oh, right? My God. So I just very briefly, before I practiced here, I did work in rural Kansas with folks with mandatory substance abuse issues, although I was not the substance abuse counselor. Several of those folks were my patients for other things, and the attrition rate is really, really high. And transportation is in these rural areas. It's a very significant treatment barrier, right? And so one of the ways that we would manage that without using the technology would be we bought and maintained a fleet of cars and had people driving folks to therapy, as well as case managers to remind people to go. And so when you think about the expense that you're pumping into keeping cars going, which always reduce in value, and all of the expense of hiring employees. So how much, if you could tell us sort of roughly, how much was it costing for them to use, if you may not know, use this virtual technology to solve the same problem?
Pennies on the dollar, right? I mean, the software is not horribly expensive, and really what you're talking about is just the setup cost and making sure that you have the bandwidth to do it, and then it's labor, it's the clinicians. And one of the things they started using it with youth groups, and I actually think SAMHSA was involved in. They had a SAMHSA grant, and they were doing this with youth. One of the things that they found with youth that was so powerful is that there was a level of anonymity. Although the clinicians, so they were doing groups with avatar-assisted therapy, and so although the clinicians knew who each of the youth members were, the youth members with each other had a greater level of anonymity, and what they found is they were getting a much, much higher level of disclosure among the youth, and the research shows that when you have higher anonymity, that folks are more willing to disclose things. And so particularly with adolescents, that level of protection was really powerful for them.
And let's really spell this out for folks. So if you are a youth with a substance abuse problem and trouble with the law, maybe having a court-ordered therapy, and you have to do all this stuff with other folks, like if you came, for example, to the mental health center, it was very close to the schools, everyone knows you're coming there, you have to then face all of your peers the next day. There are a lot of very real social complications for seeking out therapy and not having a lot of anonymity in rural areas, correct?
Absolutely, and actually when you talk to youth and they do research with youth to find out what the barriers to treatment are, anonymity and not being known, being able to get services without people knowing that you're getting services for youth is one of the huge barriers. They don't want to be seen going into clinics. They don't want to be seen going into the school counselor's office. There's still so much prejudice and discrimination, particularly among youth. So that was one of the things that really had me leaning towards and looking at this using virtual technology to connect with youth. So that barrier, the research shows with youth, another huge barrier is this concept of self-agency. And it's a concept that unfortunately the mental health field has not tapped into yet or gotten a sense of. And that's that people want to get services on their own in a way that fits for them. They want to feel like they're doing it themselves. And for youth, that's really hard. It's hard for them to feel empowered. They've often got to go through adults and go through multiple channels to engage services. So anything you can do to increase their sense of anonymity. So for instance, imagine if you have to go to a therapy appointment, your mom has to, so you got to schedule it. Your mom's got to take you, right? You've got to get in the car, you've got to drive, you get out in front of this clinic where you don't want to be seen, you have to walk into a waiting room with other people that you don't want seeing you, and so then you repeat the process as you exit. With avatar-assisted therapy, with these sessions, you don't need to leave your house. In fact, once the agency has consent, you may not even, you'll just log in, check in with your therapist, and you're there in session. So not only does it feel more anonymous and safer without the prejudice and discrimination, two, you're doing it on your own. It feels like it's something you're making happen under your own power. So it's very empowering. So we're tapping into a lot of the things and eliminating a lot of the barriers that youth tell us are major barriers to them getting treatment. The third barrier you talk about is that therapy is boring. It's just not fun.
It isn't.
Right? I know there's a lot of wonderful youth providers out there, but going and sitting, it's not necessarily as much fun as we think it is as therapists. And so when we added, and DeWitt was talking about, how many people are online doing this virtual worlds. One of the articles that I actually did when we applied for the grant, 1 billion people in some way, shape, or form are doing virtual role-playing games, right? So we're talking about a huge, huge number of folks. And in Australia, they did this project on a large scale with some federal dollars, whatever the government dollars, and found that it really worked with youth. And so when I came across this research, I was like, wow, if we could bring this to our youth in the St. Louis area, wouldn't that be super cool?
And DeWitt, was it super cool?
Absolutely, and one barrier that I would mention that that you don't have to deal with is you only have to put on a shirt. You don't even have to put on pants necessarily to participate in any of this. See, I think it's really cool. I think the idea of meeting kids where they're at. So they're going online, whether we like it or not. They are hanging out with their friends. They're engaging in lots of activities online. And this is an opportunity for us to say, okay, you're going to do that? Let's give you another place to go where you've got the opportunity to have lots of fun and at the same time have access to mental health resources if you need them. And if you don't need them, great. They're there. If you are in world and you find that a friend might just need some help or you want to ask a question on behalf of a friend, great, you've got very easy access to that, and those services can then fall back and be kind of the backdrop, and you can do your interaction with other youth without them really being in the way, which is a really cool aspect as well.
So is that what happens? I mean, when you make it so you can just hang out, but you make it so they can just sort of, on the back, come in the back door, ask a question, engage in an anonymous way. Is that what they're doing?
Well, we're actually launching with youth on March 2nd. So,
oh my gosh!
So we don't have a lot of youth in world. Yes, it is. I had hair yesterday. I don't know if you knew. But the idea is that we want to. So first of all, the world is pretty large. So there are places that the youth can log in and go hang out in areas where there aren't agency staff hanging out. And they can then go to areas where agency staff are hanging out if that's what they choose to do. We are also going to be creating events that will go on, like open poetry night, where youth will be able to sign up and share their poetry through their mic, but they're represented by their avatar. And we're going to do other fun things like that to bring them in. But those are things that if they want to participate in those things, they can, and if they don't have to.
So tell us a little bit about the technology for this. So how do you get an account? Is this a lot like Second Life, where you get an account, you build your avatar? I mean, how do people get set up to do this?
Sure. So a lot of those dynamics are similar to Second Life. The thing that's different about this, and that makes this really powerful for us in the St. Louis region, is that this isn't connected to any other service. This is just our world. And whereas Second Life is all over the world, and all kinds of things are happening in Second Life.
All kinds of things. Let's be really clear that we're talking about sex. People have a lot of virtual sex in the virtual Second Life. And you need to know this before, like if we send a bunch of folks there, and then they go, oh my God. So so when I saw this, the first thought I was like, so how do we moderate this?
Sure.
Because I have to, and I am usually a fairly hands-off person about this, and I don't tend to be worrisome. But so you're telling me that you have your own platform and it's yours and you maintain it, which is very different than what could happen in a Second Life setting.
Absolutely.
So I'm sorry, I just had to say sex really loudly and in a funny voice. Go ahead.
Well, whenever you can get the opportunity to say it, I guess that's good. So we will know everybody that's in the world. And because this is the opportunity to connect with mental health services, we will have families fill out all of the normal kinds of paperwork that they would fill out for other programs. And so in that process will be a live process with real paper and real signatures. So we will know who the youth are. There will be a database that lets us know who the real name is behind the avatar name. One of the things that's really important about this is for the youth to be able to operate with their avatar name, which is a made-up name that is not too similar to their real name, and for staff to interact with them based on that avatar name. But if we find ourselves in crisis and we can't get the youth to share more information about who they really are, how we can really get in contact with them, we can go to the database because we know that we've had real signatures and we've talked to real people. So we have their home phone number, we have their home address, we have the names of their parents and all of that information. But that's on the back burner, and we hope to never have to access that information. But if we need to, it's there, which is awesome.
So, I mean, and this is basically a reasonable, switch cameras. This is very reasonable that you are dealing with youth who do have some risk factors, and because of that, you really actually are providing some infrastructure for some support and supervision that really actually is very appropriate.
Absolutely.
Given the situation, but it's fairly invisible to the architecture for the end user, I'm guessing, unless there becomes a concern.
Yes. Now, we will have BHR staff and staff from other partner agencies that will be in the world on a regular basis, and so they can always walk up to them. We are also putting in the world, and I may have an opportunity to show you a little bit later, we're putting like blue light kiosks throughout the world that are very similar to the notion of having the blue light signs on college campuses, where if you go up to these kiosks, there's a button that you can push that will automatically open up a chat window with BHR staff, which is the beauty of having a 24-hour service connected to this, is that 24 hours a day, even if there aren't staff on duty in the world, there's always access to, when you hit the button.
So here's the thing, DeWitt. I want to see the action, and I'm going to give you a minute to sort of to get the action set up. And
okay.
All you pants-free tweeters, I don't mean that action, filthy. So we're going to go ahead, and I introduced you a little bit earlier to the bowl of interesting questions. So while you get your screenshots prepared, the bowl is going to talk to us. And Dr. Bart Andrews said that it's not fair that because the bowl and I are so close, that I always have the luxury of going last. So I agreed to draw and then go first. You don't know what the question's going to be. You don't know how appropriate I'm going to be. You don't even know if I'm wearing pants, and you don't care. And so I'm going to, so we've got our first topic for the night. I've drawn, and the question, this pirate hat gets in the way. The question is, what one feature does your avatar have that you wished you had in real life? And that's if you have an avatar. Have you guys made avatars yet for this world?
I've been using different avatars, and I think that that's actually the thing that I like the most, is that I can have hair if I want, and that's a really big deal. I was having fun making little avatars. My daughter, who is 9, and she saw some of the ones I was doing just for the show today, and she was like, I want to make some too. So I was having to send my daughter links. So I think that the one thing that the features that avatars have that I do not, is it takes them a lot less time to get ready in the morning, and they look better than I do. Absolutely.
How about you, Dr. Bart Andrews?
I crashed for a second there. I'm back in. What did I miss?
What one feature does your avatar have that that you wished you had in real life?
Okay, so this is an easy one for me. This is a great question. So my avatar, when I'm in voice, can fly. Which is really, it seems like a simple thing in the video world, but being able to fly around when you're in world is really one of the coolest things ever. And when Dick Dillon, who kind of created this world, showed that feature to me, I just fell in love with it. So you can just pick up and just fly around over the mountains, over to the ocean, over to the Civic Center. It's just really neat, that freedom to be able to just fly whenever you want. I would love to be able to fly around. And after watching Birdman recently, I think that that was even more compelling to me.
That is a little twisted. After the Birdman comment, you took it, spun it around. And so I'm going to bring DeWitt to your screen share, but really quick, DeWitt, you said hair. Hair is what's really important, right?
The ability to choose.
To choose the hair.
Yes, yes.
So is this your avatar right here?
This is the avatar I'm using now, and so you can see that I'm not always choosing to have hair.
Okay.
But this is the landing spot for the world. And there are currently 3 partnering agencies that will have space in the world, and you can see there's Youth in Need, BHR, and Preferred Family Healthcare. And it's important for everybody to understand that this is a pilot project, and so we shouldn't necessarily think of this as a full-fledged service at this point.
What does
that mean? Well, ultimately, we would like to have more than 3 agencies in the world. There are a lot of other agencies that would be relative to youth that are not represented by these 3. You're
saying that a community might consider co-locating. This is fantastic. It's co-locating its virtual youth services, not just its physical youth services.
Yes.
That's actually really important.
I think, ultimately our vision is that every youth service agency in the St. Louis region would have some level of space within the world, possibly have some level of staffing within the world. Of course, this is years from now maybe, but that would be an ideal thing. And you could say I can fly. I didn't actually mean to fly. I meant to go forward, but. Yeah, so that would be ideal. Other things that are not that I think at some point would be nice. There was a tweet, and I'm sorry I can't do 2 things at once, but I did see that there was a a question about being able to have mobile access.
Yes.
And that's a really important question related to youth. This
Yes.
version of the virtual world does not allow for accessing and maneuverability on a smartphone, but we know that that would be a really key feature that we would like to build in at some point in
So
time.
this is a pilot. It's a feature that can be built in for youth who might have like a Go phone or some sort of smartphone that they could then, like, say, go to the McDonald's or the library or a place with wireless that they could get and use. If they didn't have it at home, that would be a really important component. And Sanford James, you haven't met Sanford James. You need to meet him on the Twitter. He's great because he talks about underserved populations quite a lot, and he's very mindful. He says he worries that the virtual world is not a good fit for underserved populations. And I'm wondering, just very briefly, if maybe you or Bart could make a comment to that as we're looking around.
I'm going to jump in on that because it's key, and we've actually heard that before. And there was some local projects recently where there was this. It was put out. There was some social media projects locally where it was put out that urban youth and that people of color would not engage, and they actually found out that not to be the case. In fact, their participation level and the level of engagement they got from youth of color was phenomenal. And we have really focused on this project. In fact, is geared towards youth that live in the Ferguson, Florissant area. So we're talking about a suburban, inner suburban core group.
Now, are there people of color in Ferguson?
There are.
I'm sorry.
And,
that was sarcastic.
And so I think that I actually think that one of the things we're finding, and DeWitt can comment on this, but there's been a tremendous amount of interest from youth of color around this project. And I think one of the interesting things and I wish I had the citation, but when they look at racial disparity, I know I don't have the racial disparity, one of the biggest things that removes racial disparity are electronic follow-up programs. When you can actually do phone follow-up or electronic follow-up, they find these programs really care coordination that can be done electronically where people don't have to go someplace. Really cut down racial disparities and mental health outcomes. And so this is an extension of that. When you can take the services to where the youth or where the person is, you cut down many of the barriers that exist for people of color in accessing services.
Excellent response. That's for you, Sanford James, who I love. So go and show us a little bit more, DeWitt, about what they can do. Someone wants to know if your avatar can dance.
No.
Sorry. Go ahead.
But you know, the virtual world is supposed to be kind of, in some respects, a reflection of the real world, and so that's where that comes from. Because I can't dance. I will show you that the avatar does have a pretty funky run, though. So you might not like the. I can't quite dance, but I can.
It needs a beat.
Run. Yeah. So what I'm running up to now is one of those blue light kiosks, and this red button will become active. And many of you may be wondering, why is there so much white space on the screen? And this area over here, where my cursor is a really important piece to the project that we are in the process of building now. So when I push this red button, what will happen once we go live is that a chat window will open in this area. Also in this area, all kinds of other online types of content can show up. So YouTube videos, websites, links, all kinds of things can show up in this area. So there's really two ways of getting to media. You can have media in the main video game type window, and you can have a lot more material that shows up on this side panel. So again, this is just the first level, and you can actually walk up into the mountains or fly into the mountains if you so chose to do so. Flying is one of the things that are most exciting for folks oftentimes. There are also different levels, and so I'm just going to jump to another level, and we've got this level here. These are different levels that you're seeing off onto the left, and this is a sample office. And so if you were looking to have interaction with just one or two people, you might come to this space. And I was talking with some youth the other day, and I said, and if you get to this space first, you get to sit in this chair. the adult doesn't necessarily.
I want to know if there are like games you can play. Like, can the youth like hang out and like just like World of Warcraft or whatever, interact like while doing something?
So these avatars do not have the same types of capabilities as some video games, and it's really about a matter of dollars and cents.
So okay, I'm going to pop in. So really quickly, people out there who have money and want to make a difference about mental health, DeWitt needs money for dancing and gaming for mental health. And I'm joking a little, but I actually have pants on, and I'm also sort of serious.
With your pirate hat.
With my pirate, because if you had more money, I mean, there are a lot of functionality that would really, this is already a thing that works. It could be fleshed out with more funding, correct?
Absolutely, and you know, this is a discovery pilot project, so we're trying to find out what youth like about the world and what youth don't like. And one of the things that we knew going in, but we've also had confirmed, is that the visuals of this are exciting to adults, and they're a few years behind in the eyes of a lot of our youth.
Yes.
Because some video games look as real as you and I look, even with your pirate hat. And so this doesn't look that way to them.
This is old school, folks.
A little bit. One of the things that we're planning on doing is, like, we've got the Space Needle. So we're thinking of putting the arch there, and so we're going to do things that that customize the space, so that even though the technology is not exactly the same as some of the other things that they've seen, they can't go to Second Life and find the arch. They can't go to Second Life. I want to
find the arch. Do it. I'm sorry. I would really do that. That's so cool.
That would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And so, you know, on these other levels, there are paths, and some of the paths we're going to name after some of the major streets in the St. Louis region, so that there are things that are here that they can't find anywhere else. And we're also, you know, with the pilot youth, we're talking to them about the fact that they're on the cusp of creating a brand new service for youth throughout the St. Louis region. And so, for those types of reasons, they're willing to put up with this goofy running, and help us figure it out. But we're going to hear things like, we need more customization of avatars, we need more realistic scenery and things like that. And all of that stuff is possible with money. But, you know, World of Warcraft and those other video games are multi-million-dollar projects that have developed over years and years and years and years.
Right.
And so I'm going to make another plug. World of Warcraft,
you have folks who develop real relationships online and then have mental health needs. Like, maybe you could donate some funding and technical expertise.
There you go.
Like, look, I'm just going to ask for things. Folks, help us tweet World of Warcraft. Like, mental health, saving lives for youth who are in crisis. These are your future customers, World of Warcraft. And they have mental health needs, and we believe virtual technology is an appropriate and good way to provide it. And we have folks in St. Louis through BHR who are ready and able and have started the foundation, who have the good science and the foundational projects. But projects like these absolutely require dollars for them to be the quality that they deserve, right? Bart, give the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, that's the truth of the matter. I mean, this project, this pilot project, is just to first demonstrate that youth will use it, that we can create a safe and efficacious environment. There's no doubt that in terms of the dollars that we had, we could not put the bells and whistles and make it as slick as youth are used to, because all these games and apps have lots of money behind them. So the first step is having the youth participate in its creation and its piloting is a big part. They're teaching us, and their leadership and guidance in this process is going to be huge. So post-pilot, the goal is really to want to be able able to develop apps and to be able to provide more options and gamification elements, safe gamification elements to the treatment, because this is where things are going. I just tweeted out a great resource. Christine Eichenberg did actually an online book. It's open access, so anybody can get the whole book. And there's just great one chapter after another about how to use virtual media to provide services for both adults and youth. What are the pros? What are the cons? But there's no doubt that when we look at Generation Z, when we look at digital natives, more and more their world, the meaningful world to them is a virtual world. In fact, when they just did research with Generation Z folks consider their online relationships more important as their face-to-face relationships. The relationships in the world that they're developing in cyberspace is just as meaningful and important to them as their other relationships.
Let's take a pause about that, because the SPSM is about that, right? That many of us interact, even though we are all across the world, we interact on a regular basis and have close collaborations, and these are in many ways virtual relationships, right?
They are. I think virtual is a bit of a misnomer, and I think that virtual often has this that it lacks meaning or that it's phony or fake, and that's just simply not true. It's a different way that we're communicating and engaging with others, and it's an extremely powerful way that we're connecting and engaging with others. And so I think this idea that somehow this is a fad or it's going to go away, that's not true. I think we're going to find over time we're going to become increasingly engaged in the digital sphere, and when they talk to the digital natives, when they talk to Generation Z, youth value elements of life that exist only in the digital sphere more than they do physical objects, right? This is a huge, huge shift in our culture. And for those of us that are in mental health, behavioral health treatment, if we don't get on board with this, we're going to miss out. And the youth will do it on their own, and there's some of that actually going on, right?
Yes.
So I think that we either get on board and start opening these doors, or we're going to be left out and wondering what happened.
And we have expertise and knowledge about how to be helpful, that if we were willing to meet people where they were, we could do a lot of good. Otherwise, we're sort of left with whatever people figure out, which may or may not include some of the important features that we know about safety and about effectiveness and wellness. It's time for a little break. Keep showing us the screen shares. People are loving it. And this will give you guys just a chance for DeWitt and for Bart to check their Twitter feeds. Great questions going on. I'm going to switch camera one last time. The bowl of interesting questions. And I promise to go first tonight, Bart, and I don't know what I'm going to draw. It says, social media personas, more intimate or more, what did I use, or more pretend? I guess that was just what we were talking about. I'm going to say that in a lot of ways, I don't think that you cannot be yourself. So if you're being a social media persona, that's like, whoever you're being is who you are. So I think if you're being a part of yourself, you may be choosing to be deceptive, but how you actually interact it's all you. So I think that the anonymity can make you more intimate, and it can give you more options for sort of playing with how you present yourself. And I think along the vein of this topic, a lot of youth are really trying out identity. So avatars are very fun because they're customizable. How you might experiment with interacting with people can be fun in virtual worlds, because that's, I went to the same school from kindergarten through high school graduation with like the same 75 kids. So who they thought you were is who you were for 13 years in a lot of ways. So being able to try things out is a very real thing, in my opinion. Bart?
Yeah, I think that, so April, I'm pretty new to the social media game. I mean, it was one of the things I told you about my Twitter experiment a couple of years ago, and it turned out that the only folks following me were like 18-year-old goth folks, because I posted some William S. Burroughs poetry, which I now regret. Yeah, it wasn't a good scene for me. So it took me, I was uncomfortable, and I think hearing you talk when we were at the NASCOD conference about how part of social media is being yourself and knowing that you're going to make mistakes, and that I remember you mentioned that the solution to pollution is dilution. That right? And as you engage, you're going to have some missteps, and I've had my missteps. But if you can't be yourself and engage as yourself, really, what's the point, right? And I've been very fortunate. I've met some of the most amazing folks that I never would have met if I wasn't engaged in social media. And I think one of the things that you said, April, that really stuck to me was that this idea that if you don't think you're engaged with social media, you're wrong. You already are. People are out there and probably talking about you. You just don't have any control or input in it. And so that was a really powerful lesson for a lot of folks at the conference. So for me, when I'm online and I'm tweeting, I try to be myself as much as I possibly can. There's times when I am careful, because I think one of the tweets that I saw that was really cool was about when you're out on social media, if you're just kind and positive and treat people the way you want to be treated, it tends to go really well. And I think that that's a good thing. And we've all, seen some of the public shaming and the darker side of social media. But I think that we need to be role models in that as well, and particularly in the positions that we're in.
Yeah, the Will Wheaton golden rule of social media, which is don't be a dick.
That's
right?
a good rule. Yeah.
So DeWitt, virtual personas, more intimate or more pretend?
I think that there's the potential for both to happen, but that's okay. Like, this is this is the beauty of what we have, is that you can pretend, you can try new things out. Maybe you are typically not a nice person, and you don't believe that there's any goodwill that comes from being nice, and maybe you come into a virtual world and you just pretend to be nice and see what happens. Or maybe you try the other. I think that we're too apt to hold on to old notions of ourselves, and if we have mechanisms like this that allow people to kind of try out new things, I think that that's all the better. And I think that is why chat rooms, and then later forums, and then virtual worlds and video games became so popular, because you don't necessarily have to be and hold on to the baggage that you hold when you log off. You can do things differently, and if that gives you an opportunity to then integrate new things into your real world that make you a healthier person, then all for it.
Go ahead.
One of the things I think is really important when adults start talking about the fears of what could happen in liability, and are they really who they
I like how we're talking about the adults as if we're not the adults, DeWitt.
Well, I am talking because I'm not having this conversation.
Go ahead.
Is that youth are online already?
Yes.
They're in virtual worlds already, and they are experiencing all kinds of things without any type of support or regulation in some cases. And so a virtual world like this, yes, things could happen in this virtual world that we wouldn't want to happen. But if we stop thinking just about our agencies, but think about the youth, but in this world, they have the 24 access to help. They have whatever their normal supports are, plus they have VHR and the other agencies and the adults that are connected with this world, and the peers that hopefully are on this world because they want to be kind and supportive of one another. So this just gives extra opportunity for doing things right that they don't get outside of this. And one of the things we want to build into the world is training on social media, how to remain safe in social media and online, that they just aren't necessarily getting from logging into a video game or from Second Life.
That's wonderful. Like, if we're here to help them, like, navigate this, as opposed to there being this sort of brave new world that we about, and that youth are just having to figure out on their own. I mean, if we aren't there, then really in some ways we've abandoned them to it, which I think is the wrong thing for us to do, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things when this idea first came out, and we talked about having youth be able to get on the site 24/7 and interact with each other 24/7, there were some folks that plain and simple, they freaked out, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna let youth talk to each other, and I'm like, yes, we in fact are. They're already doing this. We're gonna help create and help them create some norms and a culture and an environment that's as safe as possible. But there is no such anything that is worthwhile to you if you make it so safe and so structured and so monitored that they can't be themselves. What's the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll get exactly what you want, which is them not engaging. And so right, that you'll get them engaging in some superficial manner. We need to trust our youth. Right? We need to trust them. And there was this great tweet the other day that talked about how hard it is being an adolescent, that we're expected to act like adults, but we're treated like kids.
Yeah.
Right? And it was so powerful that here they're in this kind of split world. Yeah, we want them to be like adults, but we treat them like little kids. And so Dick Dillon, who was the creator of the site and kind of the brains behind the virtual world that preferred Family First Youth, when he and I first talked about that, I was a little nervous about it. And we had a good conversation. He's like, look, we need to trust them and have them be themselves and not feel like they're monitored every second of every day, or the world won't have any life to it. And I was like, you're right. We need to have the courage to trust our youth and let them do what they're already doing, but in a safe environment where they can get help and support when they need it.
Melody Jarvis tweeted about don't underestimate the power of peer support. And one of the awesome things that could potentially happen in a full implementation of this virtual world is, we've got youth all over the St. Louis region that are trained in peer support. And what if they worked shifts in the space, or they just chose to hang out in the space, and if someone is in crisis, their first line of defense could be to talk to a peer who's received some peer training, and they can help them decide whether or not they need to ramp up to the next level of talking to an adult. But then if they do decide that, all they've got to do is go to a kiosk, or go to the next level within the world, and there's an adult there that they can connect with.
I totally agree with that, because I think first of all, we're teaching youth exactly what we want them to be doing as adults, which is when you start to have a problem, look for your friends and build a network, and then hopefully the friends as a group are wiser and they know when to involve others with helping. And we all have to do that. That's a life skill, and there's no reason why you can't be doing that. They already do that, but they could be doing that with our support, which is a better idea, in my opinion. But who am I? Somebody who may or may not be wearing pants. We're getting to the last couple of minutes. One of the questions we really have touched on without being explicit about is important, I think, because many of us who are doing these suicide prevention projects, especially with technology, and there are several people in the chat who identify with this, is that there seem to be some unique challenges and barriers anytime that you use the word youth or technology or crisis or mental health or suicide. People, it raises a sense of liability alarm bells inside of them. So in terms of just the flat-out technology to build this infrastructure and getting the funding, or in terms of people's anxiety about doing a project like this, what were the challenges and obstacles that you have to face to get something like this off the ground on March 2nd?
Well, I'll let, because DeWitt's been more in the day-to-day, but one of the big challenges was just for folks to see the vision and the safety that there was a recognition that having youth have 24/7 access to a site was a little bit of a challenge, and funding. And obviously we needed some money to do this. We couldn't have done this without the St. Louis County Children's Service Fund. They've been amazing. But that big leap that we were going to do something completely new, we were going to take a risk, and we were going to trust our youth, and getting buy-in, and also getting buy-in that we were going to involve youth right from the beginning, that we couldn't just be adults and design this and then unload it on them, that we needed to get youth involved right from the beginning. That was really a key part of this. And then DeWitt has a lot more details about other challenges in implementing this.
Well, I guess I would start with, there is a little bit of liability.
That's not comforting, DeWitt. That's not what I wanted you to say.
there's liability when somebody steps onto my sidewalk. But it doesn't mean that I don't have sidewalks anymore. I guess in some communities it does mean that you don't have sidewalks anymore. But in my area, you still have sidewalks. When we allow a youth or an adult to come into our buildings, we're assuming some level of liability, but it's a level of liability that we've determined is a reasonable level, and we insure ourselves to address that. The liability here is if we think about this from a youth's perspective, the danger is less if they're logging into this world, in my view. The danger is less than if they're logging into some world that doesn't have the supports. It doesn't mean that bad things are necessarily going to happen in those other worlds, but we know that there's access to help in this particular world. And so, you know, the liability question, I think, is something that is a byproduct of, you know, a focus that's not on good service, but is on something else. And I don't know if that's a popular thing to say, because I do understand that there are real legal concerns that one can have.
We only say popular, well agreed on, non-controversial items on SPSM DeWitt.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm logging out now.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I mean, one of the things. Oh, well, DeWitt's doing a great job with this. One of the things that we actually built into this grant was we built in dollars for legal consultation. So we ran this entire project by a behavioral health focused legal team who I was really, and when we talk about challenges, I was nervous that when they saw this project, they were going to be like, oh, I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole. They were, when they looked at our design, when they looked at what we were doing, they were excited about it. I mean, and DeWitt was at that meeting, yeah. And to see attorneys excited about this project was one of the coolest things ever. And they gave us really good guidance. They helped us develop procedures and documents to provide as much liability coverage as you can. And DeWitt did a good job. There's liability in everything you do. But that was one of my big fears when the attorneys saw this. They were going to like, oh, no. And they were like, oh no, this is exciting, this is cool, here's how you do this to make sure that you don't expose yourself more than any other mental health professional, and anything else they're doing is exposing themselves. And that was really, really cool. And
we mean exposing yourselves to liability, not really exposing yourselves, folks.
No standing up if you don't have pants on. We you know,
that's don't ever work.
We talked about what the procedures need to be for escalating a crisis situation, and where is information stored and where is information not stored, and what access to information do the developers of the technology companies that develop this world, what information do they have access to, and where are the firewalls? How do we maintain those firewalls? All of those types of things have been discussed, and honestly, those kiosks and just having the ability to quickly move to help if there's a need for that is right on. And this isn't something that could easily be done by an organization that doesn't have a 24-hour operation, where they always are staffed with well-trained folks to respond to crisis. In fact, for a lot of those folks, if something escalates to get to them from this virtual world, they actually have access to more information than if a youth just calls and they don't choose to share where they're calling from. Like with this, it's a little bit easier. Ultimately, they have more info.
We're in that last couple of minutes, so we're going to do a little bit of an outro and final thoughts. But that's so I'm going to do my final thought as a sum up of yours, because that's brilliant. So one of the things that we say a lot when we talk about innovation, suicide, technology, social media, is that anxiety and avoidance are no substitute for caution and consultation. And so that if you want to do these innovative projects, there's already risk. People are already dying by suicide. People are already in crisis. But, for example, you've thought it through, consulted with attorneys, and took the natural placement of crisis centers with 24/7 services to be able to expand on those because you already had the 24/7 infrastructure. So I understand that people can be anxious about crisis projects, but in many ways you're doing something better and safer. And that's my final thought. How about y'all?
My final thought is, one, DeWitt is awesome. His leadership in this program, and he just took the ball and ran with it. And I think that the big message for me is that we have to take risks. We have to get ahead of the game, and we got to start meeting people where they're at. If we're going to make lasting impacts with our youth, we've got to start adapting to them and quit asking them to adapt to us. That's my 2 cents.
And finally, for DeWitt.
Yep, Bart just took everything I was going to say, especially the part about DeWitt is awesome. No, seriously. This is an amazing process, and I'm so excited to see a social service agency that's brave enough to take on the technology issues, because of course there are some issues that need to be worked out. I think the point about meeting youth where they are is super, super important. We've created so many structures where they have to jump through lots of barriers to get to us during the time frame that we want them to get to us. And of course, we want to go home and eat dinner with our children or do whatever it is that we do. But youth are in crisis during those hours as well. So meeting youth where they are, and that means if technology is where they are, then that's where we need to be. And even if voice in its current format is not the ultimate perfect answer, the answer is not to abandon voice. The answer is to make voice better.
Voice 2.0. So we're getting ready to do the outro, and I've been working on this with Tony Wood. You've had another hour with SPSM. We are grateful for a community that shows up and makes it what it is. You make my week, every one of you, and you know it because you all talk to me, and you're wonderful. If you want to find SPSM on Facebook, find our page, like it. It'll keep you up to date with all the information about our chats, our guests, where the live vlogs are, all of that good stuff. You can go follow us at SPSM Chat. I'm at Doc Foreman. You can find me on Twitter as @DocForeman, on Facebook as April Foreman. You can go to our website at spsmchat.com. And let me give you our 2 wonderful guests. Tell us very quickly where they can find you with all their questions post-chat.
At Bart Andrews. It's just that easy.
Look at my lower third at DeWitt Campbell.
Please do find us. We'll be chatting a little bit and doing sort of our post-vlogging conversation, and then I'm sure they'll get to you with your questions. There were so many good ones. We didn't get to them all. Have a great week, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.